All righty. Welcome
Okay,
back, everyone. After a break.
thank
Sorry.
you.
Yeah.
So on Wednesday, on David Boville's call, we were talking with Ward, right? And so our question was, how can we basically link up a bunch of knowledge repositories and people doing Zoom calls on a variety of different subjects, all kind of loosely connected through collective intelligence? Word suggested that we have a site, wiki, like whatever, a place where we can index these calls with the subject and link to different places, to different repositories. Um, so we all share an index, which I thought was great. But somehow that kind of morphed when I thought about it. Basically, what I was thinking about is there's one way to tag the calls, which is kind of by subject, which might be like, SRM or something like that. But there are really a variety of ways to tag the calls. Like, what if there's like snarky, sarcastic content? Or what if there's like some kind of um, heated discussion, or something funny happens, or it's like, the Jasmine hour, like it's kind of like a spiritual moment or poetic, right? All these are kind of like different containers, and that might be more useful in a certain sense. So expanding like the containers that we can oh, who's there? Hi, Dot.
Welcome, Dot. Welcome. Go, carry on. Sorry.
So basically expanding the containers that we can put stuff in, and maybe even kind of like provide people who are really good at content production, who are writing articles or blogging or whatever, kind of finding more sophisticated ways of actually getting this stuff to the right people, um, so that these things are written about and kind of these ideas spread and stuff like that. So that's why so during that call on Wednesday, I'm going to give you the link. Um, I ended up being on a call with Amber Case, and she was working on this mural thing, and I ended up going back after to um, I'm a graphic designer, so I just, I took little snippets of the conversation. So this mural thing allows you to have little post-its of the conversation that you can move around, and you can add little hearts to, and it's like kind of like a mural. And so then I went to, add these little nuggets later. And I'm just wondering, maybe what may be really interesting is kind of like on the regular getting together with artists and starting to represent these conversations artistically, either with like shorts with like puppets, or little songs that people make up, or short videos with just one idea, or we were calling it a glitch video, or little kind of Instagram like photos with a quote. No, so it's like getting artifacts from these meetings, but that can link to the original discussion. So it's kind of like taking advantage of the, Instagram kind of culture, while also kind of like making a funnel into deeper conversation.
I really like that idea. Yeah, I think that's awesome. One thing, I'm not sure if we've talked to you about this, but we discovered recently that Twitch, which is the platform we're streaming to now instead of YouTube, has this cool feature where anyone watching can click this button just in the player that says like clip, and then it'll take you into a different tab where it gives you the, like, from where you hit that button, it'll give you 5 seconds of the live stream after you hit it, and then like a minute and 25 seconds before that. So you get a minute and a half, and then you have to trim that down to like a minute or shorter, and then you can save that clip with whatever title, and like I think you can tag it. And then
were you and Jamin experimenting with that? Because
yeah,
I was looking today because I heard that Amber said that about Twitch, and I was super excited about it. And then I noticed that you had these kind of like random clips,
yeah,
like intellectual snacks or something.
yeah. That's when we first started messing around with it. So that's it. That's a good way, I think, of I mean, it kind of takes people. The only downside is in the middle of a conversation, it takes people kind of out of the conversation in order to capture those. But if you get like kind of quick about it, it's it's more convenient than watching back through a couple hours. So yeah, I had Zoom open and then also Twitch open, and then if we just got to a juicy part, I would just switch over to Twitch and then clip it. And I might need to get into the rhythm of that a little bit more. Dot says you can also do it with recorded videos, so you can go back after the conversation and clip it, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure that our live streams are getting saved, though. I don't know.
I really like, Lauren, that you called them intellectual snacks, and one of the reasons I like that is because, in fact, the first time that Nolan and I met in person, another colleague was out visiting from Ohio, Jamie, and he's a real character. So the two of us get together, we pick up Nolan. We're like, Nolan, because we'd been driving down for like 3.5 hours from the north of the state of Washington down to where Nolan was. Nolan, we just thought of this really cool name for the social network of actual conversations. Check out the acronym: Social Network Actual Conversations Snack. So we came up with the name Snack Bar, right? And we still haven't built out the website, but that's the idea. And so these intellectual snacks could be kind of the heart of it, because that's how you get in. That's how you get the nose of the camel into the tent. That's how you get the camel into the tent, is first with the nose. So I love it. Intellectual snacks.
Well, that index, like a shared index, I think that sorry, I'm eating my potato chips.
No, this is a block party, Lauren. I'm about to smoke. So, yeah, Nolan's drinking. No problem.
So, I think, having a shared index of these calls and kind of topics and stuff like that, that might actually be a perfect excuse to have a DAO around that. I don't know if you know anything about those decentralized autonomous organizations, but they're basically for this kind of thing where you have a bunch of parties and you're trying to manage something in common, but it's not like a hierarchical thing. So it would be a solution. They're not like the user friendliest things at the moment, but it's just an idea. You can kind of do fake
I have a
DAO for a
question.
while.
So is like when you use the term DAO in this context, are you I'm kind of assuming that there's like a legal aspect of it. Is it kind of like a hybrid legal term? You know what I'm trying to ask?
You know, it's so incredibly difficult to answer that question because um, the legal framework around DAOs is so in its infancy that it's like it's impossible to even figure it out. It basically is like kind of a structure that allows you to form agreements between people because there is no such thing as like international law. So it's basically just kind of agreements. International law is just like like it's nothing. Doesn't exist. And so it's really hard with these. I think there's something called a LAO, which is maybe a United States agreement with DAOs, but that there a consensus is doing it. And it has some sort of US recognized legal format, I think. That's the best I can tell you.
But it sounds like more to the point, it sounds like they work. They're just these very functional things that just haven't really integrated too well with the legal system. It's kind of how I'm piecing it together.
Yeah. So the UX is still like it's a blockchain thing. So the UX is still pretty terrible. Um, it should get better within a year or two. And it's just you know, it's a way of kind of like making decisions together. Right now, they're based on voting, which is kind of stupid, but you can design it the way you want. And it's like, you know, good enough for now, I think. So, I mean, so I'm kind of into this thing where we start somehow getting artists involved into these conversations to kind of, you know, start to creating thumbnails of these ideas and discussions and stuff to make it more interesting and more discoverable and more kind of digestible while still preserving that, you know, original artifact where the ideas are in their original context.
I love it.
Okay.
Dude, let's do it.
So it's really like, I think it's really like, it could be powerful, but the way that it works is so different than anything that we're used to. And we don't actually have an ecosystem. That's just like another make-believe pretend thing like international law. These digital ecosystems, which Grace Rachmani pointed out that in an ecosystem, like you actually have to like be able to eat. Is Jamin still around? He seems frozen. Are you
Jamin? Oh,
still
yeah.
there?
Jamin's here.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually just wondering about the other folks. Looks like Dot and Natalie and Emery are at least nominally awake and active. And hey,
Where is Dot?
I'll let Dot speak for herself. All of our communications, and I've actually had one-on-one Zoom meetings with Dot. All of the communication so far is via text from Dot's side.
Okay. Yeah, hi, Natalie.
Natalie and James Desmond are in Ireland. James,
Okay.
last time I checked, was sleeping. But we'll hear from him when he wakes up. He makes some nice hot Irish tea, and then boom, he's good to go. So, hey, I got a thumbs up from James. All right, well, looks like we got 7 of them.
Somebody mentioned tea.
James.
I heard the word tea there. Did somebody say I'm bringing me tea?
That was this trigger that woke him up.
So Nolan, do you want to kind of share your screen and look at the mural that kind of Amber produced?
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so these the all the images on the left, I just did those last night. It took me about an hour and a half to do all of those, and I just, grabbed little pictures from Unsplash and then just took little quotes that Amber had already taken out from our meeting itself. But these are just like questions that were raised, or little quotes or something that you could just kind of like flip through, and whether it's like Pinterest or Instagram, or I'm sure there's sound programs where we could like provide little sound clips or songs or something like that. But anyway, it's like kind of getting these down to like little nuggets or intellectual snacks, and also sharing vocabulary, like what I would call nuggets, you would call intellectual snacks. So, but teaching people the sorry, my kid just came in. So anyway, kind of like sharing these things, kind of sharing a tradition of doing things like this, and kind of making all of this more artistic and more spreadable and discoverable, so that you could maybe you could kind of review a dozen conversations in the time that normally we could kind of check out one.
Totally.
And just from like 1 minute, I think you can kind of like get our vibe when we're together. Like these group of people, when they're together, it's like super quick. You can kind of like, oh, this is the kind of like energy that they're producing.
That's a really good point. And there's sort of an Indra's web kind of aspect to a conversation, that if you take a glimpse at a snippet of it, like you're saying, Lauren, you get a taste of the whole, right? There's just something about it. And I think there's something about us primates where we're like really efficient at kind of assessing the sociology of a meeting that we just walk into that's halfway in progress, between other people's social cues and our antennas and everything else. We just kind of get it. Back to you.
So, other things that we've discussed is that, having better profiles would allow us, like, anyone who's just coming in can like quickly somehow access these little like kind of these little maps of people, so that you can just like so quickly you can just see like words and bubbles and like images kind of surrounding people, that give you in a really quick amount of time just some sort of context for who these people are and what they're interested in, and that's not like your normal kind of boring profile, like little quotes from you and different meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah, because like a little quote can tell so much about a person, where they're coming from, what they're passionate about, what they're focused on. Heck yeah.
So I don't know how like a profile system would work, and I'm less into, you know, identity, like, you know, identity solutions and just like um actually doing identity in practice and less in theory.
Yeah, just get out there and do it. Just get some snippets and just start messing with it. Right? Just
Mhm.
like how a child learns to play with Legos. They don't sit in some 17-hour course at university staring at a screen, you know, learning about Lego. Just get in there and do it. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So, what I talked to Nolan about last week was working with you to, you know, identify these kind of things and to, um, yeah, I showed him last week. Let me see the results from our, let's see, hang on. Okay, so in the chat, I'm posting the results from the Kiko Lab session last time, where I kind of like um, summarized the sessions. I think that the Twitch thing might be easier if you could kind of get into a rhythm, because I spent a lot of time. It was really time consuming for me to. So what I did was I made kind of stories out of these videos. So I tried to put things together that there was some kind of flow and result from a little conversation. So I'm not sure how. It'd be nice though if I didn't have to spend so much time on making these little videos, because it wasn't negligible, the amount of time. But what it did do that Twitch doesn't do is kind of create 5-minute videos where there's kind of like a hypothesis put forth and kind of supporting evidence from a group of people.
So speaking of hypotheses, let me, if I can just jump in and play with it a little bit. So one, there are kind of two hypotheses forming in my mind as to why we would do this, or kind of what the intent is, or the purpose, or the utility. One is to basically get a summary of what happened, right? If I'm a detective, I want to go to the crime scene and I want to form a picture of, you know, who done it, what happened. I kind of want to recreate it in a sense. Now, a whole different hypothesis, and these can coexist. It's not like one or the other, but a different hypothesis is um, I'm scanning through to find out the conversation I want to be in, right? Not so much what happened, but where do I want to jump in? Right. These are my people. I don't know.
That's it. That's it. It's finding your tribe. That's the most important. I think that by framing it that way, instead of like, you know, what happened during the conversation, people don't care. They just want to be like, what are the people that I like? Where are they? And how do I connect with them?
Yeah.
It's not even by subject. Like that's just something people kind of pretend to care about.
Right. Oh my goodness. This is brilliant. I love it. And if I can just screen share one thing, well, speaking of subject, this might seem like a little bit of a regression,
Mhm.
but I just want to flash this up on the screen kind of instantaneously and then back to you guys. But this is a topic map, which can you guys see that? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, And this is kind of like, a snapshot into, Jamin's view of the world, that we've
Mhm.
got, different levels of problems, and we've got root causes down here at the bottom. These are all horizontal layers. Chronic problems, acute problems, big problems call for big solutions. So these are like classes of solutions, right?
Mhm.
Some are specific, some are more like a class, like economic and political transformation. That's a giant class. Um, and then meta solution, collective superintelligence, and two topics related to that on either side. But here's my point. This is just kind of top level. You can imagine clicking on any one of these and then seeing the whole taxonomy emanate from there. But imagine I wanted to get like a snapshot of Jamin. Imagine, like 3 or 4 of these topic groups that Jamin is most active in just light up. When you say Jamin, bloop, it's kind of like my read. How about Lauren? Show me Lauren's. And then different parts of the map light up. But anyway, that gets back to the topical sort of focus. So, but if not topics, then, what is this kind of essence that we can capture, right? That we can show in a quick flash, one of these new advanced profiles that you're sort of talking about,
Mhm.
what's his deal? But part of where we were coming from is that a given conversation in turn represents a mashup of, at any given moment, maybe 8 different topics, right?
Right. Right.
With different sort of weightings for each. So you could imagine, back to that same map, imagine there's 3 different topics and it's kind of in the middle of those 3. At least that gives you an idea of where you could peg that conversation on the map, right?
Mhm. And yeah, I think what you're saying, which I think is super important, is that it's not so much topic based, like as like tribe based. Like, who are the people talking and how are they talking about these subjects? Like, are these like spiritual people who talk poetically, or these get shit done people who can just jump in and they want to actually do stuff? And so I think that's like important to identify. And most people actually want to talk to the members of their tribe, no matter what they're talking about, over like how content is usually presented, but which is by subject.
Totally, because here's a hypothesis that's forming in my mind,
Hmm.
right? I'm trying to make sense of the world. Nothing makes sense. I'm wandering through Manhattan, and it's all a confusing maze. I meet someone from my tribe, and it's like, and then just like in seconds, like how a crow can talk to another crow, and just like in half a second, and they just convey a whole picture of the world, you know. But I need to be talking to a crow to get that in my language, in that burst. It's like, hey, dude, here's what's going on here. Okay, this isn't Southern California. There's no waves and stuff like that. Here, it's all about like the bars and the cafe. Oh, got it. Sweet. See, I just had to find somebody from the surfer stoner tribe to make sense of Manhattan, right? Kind of thing. So, yeah, tribal based. This is so important, and I'm just really grateful that you exist, Lauren, because you're like starting to put words around stuff that's like we all kind of know, but it's like this deep knowing, but we didn't know how to articulate it.
Yeah, and I think that kind of connecting this content. So in a 24-hour period, you have a variety of different content. So I've been here at different times. You have completely different people coming at different times, and they're like starting little traditions. And so I think it's like the next step is to connecting um the content that's produced, like getting it to go, sending it off different places so that it meets other people who can do something with it and kind of put wings on it and make it fly even further. And part of that is um, like, for example, there's people, there's all sorts of people telling a new story, but that's not really the important thing. It's like, who are they telling the story to? That's what's important. It's like the container of the vibe of the story. And so making these different containers for different kinds of people who will resonate with the content and material produced, and they can find different discussions that they really relate to.
Yeah, it's sort of like the sociological context for that topic, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where it's and as humans, we're so much more about the sociology than about the it of the moment, right?
Right.
Really
Right.
getting into our lane of tribe, and it's like, so what's going on? That's less important than, hey, I'm so glad I finally reconnected with you guys. So what's going on, right? It's our way of connecting is by talking about stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the
Mm-hmm.
stuff is less important than the us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Totally right.
I just had this flash while you guys were talking about social profiles being like a contrasting people's really fake personas that they create, profiles of themselves over time, or they're really picky about, I don't know, basically, I want to contrast those fake personas with like a compilation of them in actual conversations. We've talked about, I've talked about this with Lauren, and her term is deep profiles. My understanding is that a large part of the deep profiles are these clips from actual conversations, and I really like where we've gone in terms of the subject being not as important as the people in the community, the tribe. And so that led me to think, well, maybe from afar, what you want to be able to do as a new person is not understand the subject from a distance so that you can jump into a conversation with people, but understand the people a little bit better from a distance so you can jump into whatever conversation with them.
Yeah, I think that's saying it really well.
Yeah, because the people and the tribe and the vibe and the kind of the collective focus and all that speaks volumes about a context that if you were reading a book, you'd have to read, like, I don't know, Wuthering Heights or something, just to spend a week just reading it, just to get it, versus in a few seconds of being there. That's where the Indra's net sort of comes in, right? In a few seconds, you're just like, oh, got it. Oh, this is totally my tribe, dude. Hey, how you doing?
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Children, here at the block party, children have priority. So a bunch of us grown-ups could be having a meeting, but if a child walks in, that all stops, and we tune in with the kid. That's just the rules of the block party. Grown-ups are boring, right? Kids are where it's at. Anyway, back to you. Thanks. And that's actually, for me, that's actually a very telling thing about any given group, is how do they treat kids, right? And kids, in a way, are kind of these universal jesters that get us out of whatever, boring grown-up gyration where it just seems like, what the hell happened to him? They kind of, but we have to, but our hearts have to be open to that jesting, right? Anyway.
Nora Bateson the other day, she suggested she's going to hold this thing for kids about homeschooling. And so I was really excited about it. So I showed up with the kids, but Nora's really popular. And so like 100 adults showed up. And I wouldn't say it was boring because it was interesting for me, but it certainly wasn't for kids. All the adults just ruined it. And my kids were the only one, like, there were some other kids in the call, and my kids were the only ones. They were like having a pillow fight in the background.
Totally. Oh my goodness. Well, and this actually gets at, kind of the heart of why we chose to create the Collective Intelligence Block Party as a 24-hour venue, right? So there's a certain culture that exists here that doesn't exist elsewhere, even if Jamin and Nolan happen to be in the elsewhere. The three of us, because this is a space that's just, ultra long format, 24 hours. You just land whenever the heck you feel like it, Friday or early Saturday, and we'll be here kind of thing. And so it creates this reliable, super long format. Therefore, what is this 15-minute breakout rooms and then we'll be back, right? Hey, there's a place for that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that place ain't here, okay?
Right.
This is block party, Friday night, drinking malt liquor into Saturday morning, and it's like, what? It's kind of like, it's sort of like a mini Burning Man every weekend, where, in the case of Burning Man, it's the desert that breaks you down. Here it's the hours, right? But, we're in this just fun, friendly space, right? And, but we're talking about stuff that's dead serious. Collective intelligence and getting our act together. So this kind of defines that little micro tribe. In a way, we sort of invented a micro tribe out of thin air. And out of frustration, right? How like the punk rock scene in the 80s emerged out of so much frustration about so much other stuff that it just kind of channeled all this youth into this crazy mode of crazy, but very unique mode of expression. Well, the inspiration for this came out of frustration that there's so many conversations about collective intelligence happening everywhere. But there are these isolated little pockets that, A, don't really know about each other, and B, even if they did know about each other, there's no way to like get together and mix it up a little bit.
Right.
So we just lit a cherry bomb in the middle of the town square and said, block party, right? And the police haven't shut us down yet. YouTube tried, but we're still going, right?
Do you think you said words to trip yourselves up? Because I know they've been trying to limit the misinformation from any COVID related stuff.
Yeah, I think that was it. I think we mentioned the C word too much, so much so that we've recently adopted a code word, which is Dos Equis. So instead of talking about that other Mexican beer, we
okay.
we're going to say Dos Equis. That's what we're talking about, the Dos Equis crisis.
Oh, I was wondering about that. Okay.
And apparently, I think they have harsher rules for live streaming than for just uploading videos. And I didn't know this before, but if you basically they can like flag your live stream in the middle of your live stream, and then if you don't do something about that within, I don't even know how much time, they'll just shut it down, and then you can't stream for like 90 days. Oh, am I frozen?
You're like frozen. You're like frozen yogurt or something like that. Nolan's in froyo mode, dude. Look at Nolan. I mean, I don't know about you, Lauren, but he froze on an image where it's kind of like that. It looks, yeah, exactly.
So back to my conversation with Nolan, which is how could I help you kind of like process some of this stuff? Because it's, so I mean, what the problem you have is if you have these recordings, but they're so massive. It's like, how do you identify the little gems within these conversations that are really like the moments of excitement or profoundness or lightness or darkness or whatever that people might be interested in? How do we identify those moments? Like, what's the rhythm and process for identifying them in the flow, as
Yeah.
Joachim Stroh says?
And-
Go on.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like I want to configure an AI that's watching this, that anytime I do like this or something like that, that doesn't get me out of the flow. If anything, it gets me closer into the flow versus, hold that thought. Let me annotate here, right?
Mhm.
And then, it's kind of like, anyway, it just kind of screws up the moment. And so, how do we, I almost want just like a button, just like a big red Staples button that I can just smack every time something sufficiently profound or cool has been said. And Nolan and I have talked about this. Like, how do we do that?
Is that a button that you could use?
It's one possibility, but what about like some app like here on my phone, and every phone has this, is, I click on clock, and then there's stopwatch mode, and I hit start, and the stopwatch goes.
Mhm.
Imagine an app. There's got to be a free app that's basically this, but with a big red orange button down here that it's like I can just go bam and just tap it, and it just like keeps a list of every time I've tapped it. What time was it, right? So I mean, I would bet that there's an app out there that would do that, right?
So, so there's something. Do you know you must know the Digital Life people, right?
Digital
Digital Life Collective. Oh my gosh, we have work to do.
life.
So, yeah, they're like probably some of the most amazing people in collective intelligence. So it's like Joachim Stroh and Christina Bowens and a bunch of folks there. There's kind of like a cluster there of Jerry Mikulski and all sorts of folks who are really, really amazing. So I think it's Joachim who's done this. So he has this thing called Talk Time, which is it's attached to something like a Zoom call where people can indicate if they're upset or triggered by something, or if someone's talking too much and they just want that person to like, okay, it's time now. It's like a more polite way of indicating, okay, move on. So that it might be possible to use Talk Time or incorporate, get that added to Talk Time. I think that's not very difficult to kind of like highlight those moments. Because I don't think you need just like, this is a moment, but I think you need like, if you just had your phone out or something and you had like 6 different buttons, in what kind of moment is this? That you can, right there, you can just kind of like highlight that. So different people might be looking for different things. So I don't know how that would be like attached to the document, but I think just having a way of people who might be interested in the archives of searching through the archives for exactly what they happen to be looking for to get ideas. Because there's a lot of people, bloggers and journalists and, you know, podcasters who are always on the lookout for great ideas. Um, and you produce a lot of good ideas within there. So in this kind of long formats discussion, it's very productive, but it's really slow. So it's not the kind of thing, it's the kind of thing that is like the environment is good for like ideas to slowly emerge, but they're like little eggs that are being produced. And so it's not always, you know, and a lot of people are in the mood, they just want the zippy intellectual snacks that are already nuggets and like shortened and, you know, snappy.
Yeah, yeah. And we can distinguish between ideas in formation or gestation versus fully formed, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Get on this and do this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's like being able to indicate that, I think, is really important in terms of um like, oh, this is an amazing idea that's well formed, or oh, something is just like emerging between these people in this room. There's some kind of like excitement. This is the like original moment when something that you sense is going to be big. This is the time that it started to happen. And that's an important thing to note, I think. The origin, the origin of ideas.
Super important. It's kind of like if I meet someone for the first time, one of the first questions is, where are you from? Which is, what's your origin? What's your context?
Right.
Right? Anyway, similarly with ideas. It's like looking at an idea and saying, where are you from?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Or somebody saying something to you and you turn around and saying, where did you get that from, man?
Yeah.
And I kind of think the whole deep profiles thing, it's like, how do it, like in that little sketch from the conversation we had, how do you design for deviance? So how do you actually design for weirdos and for people where people don't feel pressured to have fake profiles? Because that's really the design of something like LinkedIn, is that people, or, you know, Facebook or Instagram, is like creating these kind of like fictitious lives. It's not just people are that way, it's the design of the application. You know,
Totally.
and it might be invisible, and so people don't realize it's the design, because the design, it seems neutral, but the design is never neutral. So what it kind of produces, if something is producing like a bunch of racism, it's in the design, and it just seems like it's neutral. So how do we design, you know, a space for people to just kind of like be themselves and to feel comfortable sharing more, or a wider swath of themselves that normally they could? Because usually it's pretty scary. Like you can reveal like one hat, but you know, to reveal like all your hats at once, it's not really a question of being fake, but it's just like, it's a special kind of environment where you can show all parts, all facets of yourself at the same time without people being uncomfortable.
Yeah, you know, as I'm hearing you talk, not to change topics, but just as a micro example, I'm thinking of this medium itself as of the block party as a place where different people, like there are people here who come and the only contact is through text.
Mhm.
Others will come and you'll hear their voice, but they'll have an image on the screen, right?
Mhm.
And for me, this is super important, and it's actually part of the culture of the block party. Is that people show up exactly as they want to, and no one is ever pressured to ever talk or do anything. Like you can just sit here like a bump on the log. And in fact, if anyone pressures anyone else, I get immediately on top of them. It doesn't happen often. But when it does happen, I'm the, self-appointed policeman who says, sorry, you can't do that here. And so we've created a super safe space where people can be however they are, including just hanging out. It's a block party. What do you do at a block party at 2 a.m.? You drink a beer, you smoke a cigarette, and you chat with whoever you feel like, right? It's just what you do, like a Geico ad. Anyway, back to you, Lauren.
So another thing is that you met, I think you met Ben Roberts on the call. I don't know if you saw him,
Yeah.
but he does something called Now What, and I don't know if you're in touch with him, but so he has like a calendar and a bunch of profiles. He's using Kumu on his site, and it gives you a lot of affordances. And so it might be good to link up with him. And he's created a really cool format where if you go into one of his cafes, he says that he can make up to something like 70 people or something co-host. So he makes everyone a co-host. He shows in the in the lobby, he shows a menu of different rooms you can go into, or you can make one up on your own. And then people just go into different rooms and kind of have smaller conversations. But since everyone's a co-host, they can actually just virtually walk around all the rooms and go where they want to whenever they want to. So I think it's a really good format. And if the times that you start having either divergent conversations or larger amounts of people on the call, it's a really good solution. And I would put yourself on his calendar, because it's meant to like for other people to put their events on his calendar.
Totally. We gotta get right on that.
Yeah.
Totally. Thank you.
Yeah, Ben is a real network weaver in the space. So
Yeah.
So what have been some of the most interesting ideas that have emerged from your block parties?
Yeah, well, we've got one that emerged that's been emergent this last week, and today just really crystallized. And that is an idea to simultaneously eradicate world hunger, pandemics, and not just the present pandemic, but all future pandemics, as well as steer the world in the direction of veganism. We can accomplish all three by delivering whole food, plant-based meals, food to everyone, right? Okay, that sounds like some big utopian statement, that a 3-year-old might make. Nothing wrong with that. I think we need to get back towards more of those, but we have now taken it down to the level of exactly where we need to start so that this thing can go viral and propagate and really become a thing. And the way that we want to start it, I'll just use the city of Louisville, Kentucky, as just as an example. It's one of the cities in the running to lead this, and because we've got great connections there. And for example, do you know John Raymer by any chance, the Sign Network?
Yeah.
He's sort of another kind of Ben Roberts type.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he and I and Dr. Silas Rao, the big vegan leader, and he's also really embracing this collective intelligence thing. And then Dr. Priya Naik, who's a medical doctor in Atlanta area. She and Silas and John Raymer and I, so we've been going at this intensively over like 3 or 4 meetings in the last week. And today we held a 2-hour meeting about this topic and how to get it launched right here inside the block party, so that we could have not just a live studio audience, but participation. And it worked out. It was just incredible. Because basically what we're talking about is taking one city, say Louisville, descending on that city, so to speak, and doing a whole program where we commit to eradicating hunger in the city of Louisville in short order, permanently, as a model for how to do it everywhere. And we kick it off with a big press conference and media event, which I'm an expert at. And we get the attention of the country and the world. And we state in no uncertain terms, we are, including the mayor of Louisville, who's like a really super cool mayor, who has proclaimed that Louisville is the most compassionate city in the country. And it's like, this is an opportunity to say, great, let's shall we prove that? Shall we put that to the test? You know, how do we treat our hungry, right? And so the big idea is we're going to be working with certain restaurants, but it's open to all restaurants. And we're going to get donated food. We're just going to start off by, you know, ourselves, this community that's forming around this, donating truckloads of beans, rice, potatoes, produce, et cetera, and these restaurants doing mass volume productions of healthy plant-based foods, and then we push it out to all communities and we deliver to people's homes, right? And just like the story Stone Soup, did Stone Soup start out with tables and tables and tables of all this food that was going to go into it and it's all neatly prepared? No. There was zero food at the beginning. There was a stone, right? And so Stone Soup style, we start with the intention. And in their case, they took a big pot and put it in the middle of the town square. In our case, we're doing a press conference, right? But it's the same mechanism. We're communicating our intention in a very big public way about something that really, really matters. And by doing a press conference and all that with the mayor, and part of the requirement, see, several cities are in the running right now. And part of our requirement is it doesn't just take the mayor, but we need a whole bunch of pillars of the community all committing to permanently eradicating hunger in that city. That's it, right? So who's in? So we're now going to be interviewing mayors to see which city we want to go with. Because the initial press conference can only happen in one place. There might be a bunch of cities that want to do it. Okay, that's all great. But there will be one place where we concentrate and really do this. So anyway, we've been fleshing this out from a whole bunch of different angles. There's a whole bunch of vegans who come to the collective and to the block party. And so we look at it a lot from that perspective. But if you look at, you know, the perspective of the global economy and all that, the economy is contracting, people are out of work, the poor have the least amount of reserves, either cash or food in the pantry or et cetera. And so, you know, we're in a serious planetary crisis that's driving the spread of Dos Equis. And so, you know, the Chinese figured it out. Deliver food to everybody. Make them stay home, right? In our case, it's not about making people stay home, but it's about removing the far and away the number one reason why people leave their homes today in the midst of Dos Equis is to get food. Either to get food or to get money so they can buy food, right? One or the other. And, but it's all about getting food. So if we take that off the table, right? anyway, it kills so many birds metaphorically with one single stone that it's just like, we've got to do this, right? So we're gearing up to do it. We're now hunting for the right city, right? And what's part of the cool thing about this and this medium is that so many people are getting excited about it. It's like, wait a second, I'm not the only one dreaming of a world without hunger. And people start crying and sharing, and it's just like, whoa, there's a lot of energy behind this, right?
Right.
So it becomes like a laboratory for testing and socializing, ideas and seeing which ones are really, or if people are like, oh, all right, no one's really interested, but I'm like, take Adam, who's come here, the guy with A World Without Money. He just comes with all this passion. He wants to talk and talk and talk. And we're like, okay, we get the idea. What's next? But there really isn't a what's next other than to just talk about it. And so it's kind of, right? But in the case of this ending hunger thing, we've got a very clear what's next. It's like really getting focused. We want to get this done maybe on May 2nd. I mean, like really soon, right? Striking while the iron's hot, while everyone's at home and da-da-da-da-da, right?
Yeah. So just a question, maybe a stupid question, but like, I'm still not understanding why it must be vegan, because like, I'm not exactly sure that, I mean, what we've discovered recently is that, plants and trees have a lot more soul and spirit than we originally gave them credit for. So I'm not entirely certain that, even like eating plants is like you're not like taking a life. So, and while I see that, like, eating cattle is pretty devastating for the environment. How about bugs or something that's not necessarily bad for the environment and that, is high in protein? Like, must it be vegan, or is it just connected to like the way that we farm chickens and cows, and the way we're fishing the oceans is like awful? So that was just my question. That
Yeah, no, and this is a really deep topic with so many different facets. In fact, on the very first block party, we had a gentleman from Tokyo, Japan, and he made a really interesting case for why plants are not alive in the sense that animals are, in the sense that he said that the criteria for being alive is there has to be a moment where you're born and a moment where you die, right? And take like a plant where you can take trimmings and keep them going, and then they can have trimmings. I mean, there's no like, that's the moment where this plant was born. It's more like a continuum. But anyway, that's a very interesting theoretical tangent. I'll just leave it at that. That's not where I'm going right now. Where all I'm saying is it's a really deep topic with so many facets. And it's actually one that I've struggled with myself. For example, have you heard of Alan Savory? He's,
I think.
pardon me? From
you, I think. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got a YouTube video of a TED Talk that he did several years ago that just totally makes the case for what he's saying, which is that we can reverse desertification and heal the ecosystems by introducing livestock in a particular.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Anyway, it's fascinating. So I actually went to his conference out in Boulder, Colorado. I interviewed him at one point for a couple of hours. That's up on YouTube. But my point is that, like, I see value in his perspective and his decades of work in developing this and regreening deserts and all this cool stuff. So I said, great, how about if I get you and Dr. Silas Rao, the big vegan leader, together, and let's see if there's any possibility for common ground, or just what would come out of it, almost as a sociological experiment. of these two leaders coming from such different directions. So we did that experiment, and we've got several hours of it recorded. It wasn't particularly enlightening, unfortunately, but you do experiment. That's why you do experiments, to see what the heck is going to come out of it. Oh, this is going to be brilliant. And then it's like, all right, because they each got relatively positional, and there wasn't really a lot of give, and so there wasn't a common space simply wasn't created. And we've learned some important lessons just from that one experiment, and then we'll apply them to the next and the next. But all that is to say is that from where I'm coming from, I think we need to be a lot more open-minded, right? You get into some of these meetings with vegans, and if you even suggest a possibility of something that's outside the bounds of veganism, they'll just like want to strangle you or something. Anyway, so
Hang on just a minute. I'm being called to listen to something. I'll be right back.
take your time. This is a block party. We'll be here. We ain't going nowhere. You see? That's part of the magic of the block party. In fact, this last hour plus for me is a great example of what the block party was created for. Oh, you know about this other group over here? Oh, dude, they got some of the coolest stuff going on in collective intelligence. You got to meet them. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And then this, it's like the whole point of a block party is to get a community together, right? And I'm not saying we're going to achieve that here 100% or whatever, but the block party, in fact, is kind of half block party, half protest. The protest is, why the hell aren't we all getting together? So let me create the stupidest block party, right? The most just thrown together. And you can ask Nolan on the very late night that we cooked all this up. It was a crazy late night, fueled by something I don't want to mention. And we just said, we got to do this. Right? Let's just throw it together and do it. That's part of the logic of it, is that it's thrown together. What is a block party? You get a couple old rusty garbage cans, fill them with garbage, light them on fire, get somebody's boom box that still has batteries in it, and somebody bring a bong and somebody bring some beer. I mean, it's just, it creates such a casual space, right? And I felt that was really missing in our world. There's a casual space where we could get together and just learn about all this different stuff and share about it and bring people and say, hey, what's up? Hey, I heard you guys were doing, oh, great. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was actually commenting on that before you did the block party, how there's just no social space. People were, I noticed that people, even if they had like a crush on someone, they would have to pretend to be interested in doing business, just to talk to that person, because there's just no like social space where you could be like, oh, hello, just checking in with you.
No, in fact, listen, I'll tell you exactly how it went down. Nolan and I were reading your paper that you and Charlie, the Kiko Lab white paper, right? Mm-hmm. The big one. And I was pacing around, being Jamin, and Nolan was patiently reading the paper out loud, and I was listening and pacing around and just getting more and more worked up and saying, yeah, and it was literally after reading your paper catalyzed this. And then because I think it was like, and then I forget exactly the sequence, but then we were talking with Charlie on one of our weekly Tuesday meetings, and we were like, Charlie, there needs to be a place where people can come together and we can, and Charlie goes, yeah, like a block party for collective intelligence. I'm like, that's it. Right. And that's how this is really a secret love child between you and Charlie Bloss.
Who says hi, by the way? He says hi. He's
awesome.
Through me.
Well, tell him what's up and tell him to get his butt in here and grab a beer.
I'm glad you told me that. That's nice. I didn't think anyone read my white paper, so.
No, this is a secret love child. You and Charlie, this is it.
That white paper is so good.
Thank you. No one told me that. You're the first person.
I'm surprised.
No, really. I mean, we were just up for hours, just like spinning, and then it finally crystallized. And I just said, we're going to do this. And we're
Mhm.
not prepared to do any kind of block party, much less a 24-hour one, much less a 24-hour one that repeats once a week. That's a big commitment, right?
Right.
That's a big commitment. And here we are. Block
Right.
party at number 11.
So do you think it's possible to find other people to kind of take stretches of time away from you?
I would love that. And what we're getting better and better at is carving out chunks of time for different areas of focus. So it's now a standing thing. It started as an experiment, but it's now a standing thing that from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., all Pacific time, at every block party, it's the Divine Feminine.
Okay.
And it's just incredible. And now that these ladies have really, it's three awesome women who lead it, Melissa, Jackie, and Myra. And at first, they were kind of dipping their toe in the water and okay, let's do, okay. And now it's just like they are fully holding the reins and just galloping. And today they brought in Will Tuttle, this just famous vegan. I mean, if you were a vegan, you'd be like, oh my goodness, Will Tuttle, just this incredible vegan author. And he was amazing. And so that 2 hours was then followed by the 2-hour meeting that I mentioned, Dr. Priya, Dr. Stylish, John Raymer, myself, and we just invited the rest of the block party. And they came. We had, 25, 30 people at peak. And it's just like, whoa, and it was really buzzing. And at the end of that 2 or 3 hour period, it actually went on for like 6 hours. It started as a 2-hour thing and went for 6, because we can do that here. And 3 hours into it, Silas said, let's do this every Friday. Let's have this 2-hour block to move this project forward, to end hunger and eradicate pandemics. And everyone is just totally down. So what's starting to happen is it started as this big stretch of asphalt, but now there's just like this well-defined hopscotch area that's just totally chalked out, and that's hopscotch. And we don't mess with that. Right now, there's still a lot of asphalt that hasn't been painted over with something or barfed on or whatever. And so we're filling in, but the trend is that we're starting to fill in and people are starting to set up, shop. And that's what we want.
Right.
And now fast forward several weeks or months or whatever. And, I'd love for there to be just like a 4-hour period that it's just like Lauren and Charlie Kiko Lab, and you have breakout rooms and whatever, go for it. Right. So from these scrappy beginnings, right here, something is starting to form. It's like this primordial soup, right? It's the stone soup, primordial soup of collective intelligence. Throw it all in the pot and we'll see what comes out.
Right. I'm trying to think if there's a time I can kind of take over for you, because the time I'm awake and peppy is the time you're kind of dragging and towards the end.
Oh my goodness, I would love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many people I can attract, because I don't know actually that many Europeans, but but at the end where it's really like awful for you, maybe like towards 6 o'clock in the morning when you're just like done.
Well, what I found is if a 5-hour break is about perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be away any longer than that, because then I'd kind of lose the thread a little bit more. Yeah. But 24 hours is a long time to be moderating a meeting.
Yeah.
Even 12 hours is a long time. So I would love it. And here's the thing, Lauren.
It's even longer when you have to listen, yeah.
Sorry, James.
I said it's even longer when you have to listen, yeah.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, but what you said is actually very profound, Lauren, that you didn't know that you have such an amazing white paper.
No, I really didn't.
Read it. And, because for me and Nolan, you're like you're a rock star in this.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah. And so if you were to, host whatever period of time during the block party, I think that would just be a huge magnet, right? Huge draw.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe like trying to think of time that would work for me. So it's Saturday morning for me, and I can do it my time before lunchtime or after lunch, after 1. I think it ends 2:00 my time. So I could do like a couple hours in the morning, maybe.
Yeah. So 2:00 your time would be like 5 a.m. here, right? 5 a.m.
I
Pacific.
think 2:00 my time, because it ends at 2:00. I know that, so it must be the time they use 6:00 in the morning your time.
Well, 6 a.m. here would be. What time is it there right now?
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. Actually, maybe you end at 3. So I think it's 9 hours difference.
Yeah. Is it 12:30 p.m. for you right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's 9 hours difference. It's 3:30 a.m. here. So, yeah. So we end at 3 p.m. Paris time. And so, and that.
Okay. So this is the time I could do it. I could do it the last 2 hours.
Awesome.
I'll have to check with my husband, make sure that's okay, because you can maybe eat at 12, but I just have to okay it. So either like 2 hours before lunch or after, but that would be the time when you're most tired and like,
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Love it. Oh my goodness.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Super
So
cool.
I'll talk to Charles about it too.
Yeah. And and one of the things I would actually recommend is during the first 2 or 3 or whatever block parties that you chip away at the white paper. All right, it's white paper hour. Da 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 da. Or okay, we're going to start off by reading and just read the first couple of pages and then talk about it. And then the next week we'll read another couple of pages, right? I think that'd be super cool. That's just a suggestion, just an idea, right?
Okay.
And then this other like collective that you mentioned, this idea, whatever, I forget what it's called.
Oh, a DAO, yeah.
No, but then you said there's this community that's
Digital Life Collective.
Digital Life Collective. Like if you wanted to bring in some of those folks and interview them, right, on the collective intelligence block party. Right?
Okay.
Especially these days, if you invite people, they say yes, they come, right? Emery writes a breakdown of the white paper. That's what I have in mind. And then, we could post it and say, during this period of time, we'll be reviewing this white paper and just put the link right there. So people who are reviewing the schedule and figuring out when to show up, they can even read it in advance if they want.
Okay.
And
so what I think I'd like to specialize in is the processing of the conversation. Like, how do we actually like identify those moments and what do we do with them? And so what would be nice for me is to come in the room or a space, if we could maybe do something like mural or something like that, some visual space where I can look around and see little quotes and little themes and stuff like that. So maybe what it can be like is a art party where we try to attract um you know filmmakers or graphic designers or anyone like that, and it's almost it's kind of still a little early, but maybe a few people in the United States will be up if it's pretty early, but
Yeah, well, but closing time is 6 a.m. Pacific, but it's 9 a.m. Eastern. Now,
yeah,
9 o'clock in the morning, not much of Manhattan is really up and moving at 9 a.m.
right,
But
right.
there are those who get up at 7, rain or shine, every morning, including Saturday, right? So, and just like we've got these like 4 or 5 amazing folks from Ireland, led by James Desmond, who they're here like 20 hours of the block party consistently. I'm like, what's your problem? Don't you guys have anything better to do? I'm just kidding. No, but you said
All the pubs are closed.
all right.
Only joking, Jamin.
I know. But what I'm saying is, when you, no matter what time you pick, you'll be surprised by, you'll be pleasantly surprised by those who show up and find value in it and make time for it.
So there's also an option of doing it super early in the morning, so it's late on Friday night. So maybe I can kind of experiment a little bit. I'd have to see.
Totally.
I can actually get up early in the morning. Then I'd maybe get like drunk people who are always fun.
Drunk, stoned. Yeah, no, totally. Overtired. Yeah, and in fact, I would really encourage you, just experiment. So just say, hey guys, this next week, let me just try this period of time and just see how it works. And then the next week, try a different one. No problem. That's
Okay.
totally encouraged. And that's one of the cool things about a block party versus a 2-hour meeting that's sliced and diced and everyone's just all frantic and you practically have a heart attack by the end of the meeting because you were trying to stick to schedule. Block party turns that completely upside down.
Right. Do you have anyone? If I did it at 6 in the morning, who is usually there during that time?
6 in the morning your time, which would be 9 p.m. our time. 9 p.m. is actually a pretty quiet time.
Okay.
Right. And because that's 5 in the morning in Ireland. And like Natalie, James, Stephanie, they were all kind of hanging in there up until maybe not 9 p.m., but pretty close to it. James was just starting to drift off. And 9 p.m. was when I started my 5-hour break. Much needed at that point after 15 hours of moderating.
Right.
So, no, that could be totally awesome. And I mean, Nolan is such a fan of yours. I'm sure he wouldn't miss a minute of it. And so, and that's one of the great things is you start to get, like a community. Like right now for Divine Feminine, so many wonderful people show up that it's just like, wow. And then it's just like, this is it, And so we're just going to have, with what you're proposing, it's just like, man, this is so exciting.
Okay, so I think I'll be doing 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. here. I'll see. And so my idea is to get, what I imagine is to do a sort of a post-production process of getting stuff from raw material of like little sound bites and stuff to something that's ready for artists to actually do something with. So maybe it's like, maybe I can do like kind of like a production time where it's like at the end where you just throw stuff together, you pull out, you basically process the information, pull out the little gems and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is I would need you to develop more of a process so that when I arrive, I have something in front of me. I have a dashboard like I showed you with the mural thing. And maybe I can like hustle up a free account for us so that I can come and there's a dashboard and it's like just start putting stuff together. And if I'm alone, I can just sit here by myself and like throw stuff together and make up little memes, which we can pass out these little memes from, and we can do that on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Pinterest or, you know, anything like that. And that would kind of, I think that would just kind of add a little sparkle.
Well, yeah. And would we do that in real time, is your thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'd be putting out these, you'd be posting this stuff across these different social media.
I am not a big social media poster. I'm more of a production person. So what I would probably be doing is just getting it ready for other people to post.
Gotcha.
So actually making the stuff. So bringing it from, there's like long quotes or something, going through stuff, pulling the stuff out that is, so I'm good at curation and then kind of actually like, you know, putting things, like making the meme. I'm a graphic designer, so actually like making the little graphic memes and stuff like that I can do.
Beautifully. Okay. So you're thinking about during that 2-hour period, we would work on actually building these things. And
Yeah.
I guess you would lead us and then we would help, and I guess we'd just.
And maybe there's something called Figma, which is a team way of dealing with visual images and working together. So maybe I'll look into some of those with the group ways of doing production. So anyone who could come could get involved and would have something to do if they wanted to.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah. And then, I mean, not specifically in your section, but just at any time we can, I would like to have just breakout rooms open all the time that somebody could just ask to move into, so that it doesn't really matter when you show up. You know, if we're doing like a session on people working in Figma, when somebody shows up, we can, you know, yeah, they can break out. So
Yeah, I think that would be lovely. I would definitely be in favor of that.
and I'm definitely more interested in the processing side of things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely be interested to do that kind of work with you. I'm not a big social media person myself, and Jamin isn't either. I think the biggest social media person that we've worked with has got to be Dylan. He's gone pretty hard over Facebook. And it seems like John is fairly
John
active as
who?
well. John Raymer. So
Oh yeah, okay, sign guy. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he's very nice. Yeah, we do need some social media people, right? We need influencers. Do you know any influencers? I don't know any influencers.
Well, John, it was on was it at the Solution Club that John was like, hey, we're gonna do this blast. Do you remember what I'm talking about, Jamin? Was that on the Solution Club? Maybe the last block party. I don't remember what call it was. Been on too many calls.
Oh yeah, and John Raymer's talking about blasting and sine waves and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he was like, hold on, I'm gonna post it, and then it's gonna trigger a cascade.
That's right. Yeah.
And he said like, oh, it's because apparently he's like an admin on some like 200 Facebook groups that are all like fairly connected. And
I think it was at last Saturday's 8-hour silence. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
This last Saturday, by the way, Lauren, it was crazy. We did a 24-hour block party, and then we had like a 2-hour break, and then another 8-hour meeting that I was at. I didn't miss a minute of that, and it was just like, it was crazy.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine. So I have to go now. I have to make my kids stuff because they're getting mad. So yeah, let's just think about it throughout the week. And I think it'd be so much fun if we kind of like wrapped it up with a bang and like produce something that was kind of memorable, and so people could see their little quotes turn out to be something that can travel. And
Absolutely.
okay.
I love that.
Love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
me too. All right.
So psyched we're hanging together and working on all this. It's so exciting. So
Yeah.
welcome back,
Cool.
and we'll be in touch. Absolutely.
All right. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
See ya.
Lauren. Have a great weekend. See ya. Wow. Super cool. You know, here we are at block party number 11. More than 250 hours into block party dumb. Block party dumb. And, you know, this is what we envisioned from the very beginning. Awesome interactions like this. And hey, you don't know this group? Hey, let me bring him in. Oh, great. You know, and now we're starting to chunk it out. We're sort of becoming like a television network with 24 hours of programming that we need to fill up. The Block Party Network. Bottom line, it's working. It's rough, it's clunky, it's bumpy, it's smelly, and it's working.
Dot says be careful of ligma. I think she means figma, but I wanted to say ligma.
Oh, ligma. Oh yeah. She pointed out that no one answered the plant-based question. So let's are you referring to Lauren's question where she's saying, hey, you know, if you're eating plants, you're also killing? Okay. Yeah. I don't know that I have an answer to that. I mean, like, I used to think about that though. When I was a kid, I'd be like, you know, who are we humans anyway? We go around like killing other animals to eat them, chopping down other plants who used to be very happy and now they're chopped down and in our stomachs. We kind of suck was sort of the conclusion I was arriving when I used to think about this. You know, we're just these destroyers who go around the world destroying other life just to stay alive ourselves. That's kind of messed up. I mean,
yeah, and I think that I think of it like
Based diet. Emery's got it, man. High mineral content, stone-based diet. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Nolan.
I don't think my digestive tract is that resilient. I don't think I can handle that.
Stone-based diet. Never mind your stomach. I don't think they get past my teeth.
You just gotta swallow them.
Swallow them all. That's it. Stone soup. You don't need any freaking plants or animals or anything. Just stones. Stone soup. We got to go hardcore. All right. I think we figured that one out. Next. You need some sleep, Nolan. Are you tired? This sounds like a late night television commercial. Are you tired? You need sleep. Have you been spending too much time with Jamin Shively? Maybe you should go to bed.
No. No, I think there's a kind of I feel like whatever part of eating plants is screwed up is screwed up, and that there's like not a way around there being something that's screwed up, but there is like more and more efficient and ethical ways that minimize that screwed upness.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And like, for example, to the extent that it's screwed up that we eat plants, it's 20 times as screwed up that we enslave, rape, and force feed a whole bunch of animals who are just miserable the whole time, to just mow down a whole bunch of rainforest, eat it all up so that we can eat hamburger patties. You know, that's 20 times more screwed up than us just chopping down 1/20th of the forest, you know, to grow crops that we eat anyway. So no matter how you slice it, plant-based diet is infinitely better than carnivorism.
I mean, yeah, and you could basically, if we're following that line of argument, it's just screwed up that we have to consume anything to survive. And this actually goes back to a conversation we had, I think, while you were asleep, Jamin, where who was it? There was, I think it was Shankar was talking about these people that live without, they don't eat anything. They maybe like just drink water. But they also don't do anything. And so basically the conclusion there is, well, you want to go out and do things and be complicated, then you have to start consuming, and then that has a bunch of implications. So I'm gonna eat plants and I'm not gonna feel bad about it.
Every animal consumes something. The problem is that us as an animal, we want to consume everything.
Yeah. Yep. So we're downloading new software into this hardware. The hardware is pretty good. I think we just got downloaded with the wrong software. Of just like more, hoarding.
Dot wanted me to share this. This is a cool diagram.
Yeah, this is it. So we're like at the top of the pyramid. Carnivores are like at the top of the pyramid. And so we need to move down the pyramid. And she points out that every level you go up, you lose 90% of the energy. And,
Oh,
you know, I mean, just think about like, you know, cattle that eat grass and grains. We get 1 calorie for every 20 that they eat if we eat them. So that's 95% loss. Now, but that's because most of the cow is not eaten. And you know, you got bones and leather and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, yeah. So part of the redesign of life on Earth is essentially redesigning that pyramid, right? And figuring out how big our layer and what we eat, just our, that's all our footprint. That's our total footprint. Not just what we eat, but our entire set of living arrangements, housing, transportation, clothing. Yeah, you know. Mm-hmm.
I'm just visualizing that along with that pyramid, there's a complementary one that has to do with, well, if we're at the top and we're apex predators, as much as I don't like the way that sounds, I'm just visualizing I think that the reason that we consider ourselves to be at this apex point as a species on Earth is because of our ability to use energy in incredibly efficient ways that is like totally unprecedented outside of basically you're losing energy as you go up the pyramid, right? But then also those things that are kind of like siphoning energy off of the bottom. Basically, there's a reverse pyramid thing happening where the plants down at the bottom, even though they're the max producers, they're not designing things, you know, and like constructing, you know. So it's like all this energy is getting funneled up, and then it ends up being used in like crazy efficient ways in our brain, which runs on barely any electricity. What is it, like 13 watts or something like that? And it does like all these insane calculations on barely any energy at all. So it's like, well, if you want the energy to go somewhere, you know, you don't want it all to go to humans, obviously. But if there's a, I don't know, we can be at the top, so to speak, and still have that not be a bad thing for,
well,
you know.
Yeah, totally. The perfect example is a bunch of vegans on a late night Zoom video conference where we're not driving anywhere, we're not flying anywhere, we're eating plant-based foods, we're staying put, and we're plugged into the matrix. So it's just our brain plus whatever energy it costs to power the light, the laptop or the phone, the internet connection, right? So we're pretty close to optimal right here, I dare say. This is pretty cool. It's like, yeah, we're channeling that energy into pure brain power, and now collective super intelligence just squeezes it even more and gets even more efficiency out of it. All right.
Well, and you know that what's going to come out of it is like we've had like the big revolution over the past what would you say, 20 or 30 years. Maybe it's longer than that. I should probably know this, but basically the cutting edge thing in artificial intelligence was modeling after the human brain and the neurons, and in just a simple different arrangements, different architectures, but all around the same basic concept of you have a neuron and it either fires or it doesn't. And I'm the little like flash I got there was, I think as we part of building those neural networks was inspired by what we discovered about how brains function, but then actually messing with those and creating these different experiments in artificial intelligence, which is meant to eventually become a full-blown brain simulation. That's kind of the goal. Experimenting with it has been helping us learn more about the brain as well. So it's like there's like a dialectic thing going on where, and so I'm just envisioning that this conversational domain will mean it's a whole different like area of like brain, I don't know what to call it, brain mapping, or I mean, because if I don't know, it doesn't seem like we've ever had like my neurons are firing, and like there's certain patterns that are not random. They're going to happen with a lot of other people, and they're going to happen in tandem with whatever Jamin's, it's like, and we're not, we don't have EEG readers attached to our heads right now during this conversation. And I'm suggesting we don't even have to, for this ultimately to help in some, like, if all these conversations are happening like all over the place, like they might as well be all these different pathways in a brain.
Totally.
Right.
A larger brain where each of our craniums is like a neuron, right? So it becomes a fractal. We're basically expanding the fractal. We're zooming out on the fractal. Because we know all this cool shit's happening inside Jamin's cranium. Okay, well, that's interesting. Well, now that we've got this whole zoomosphere and all that, and transcription and mapping and all that, hey, let's map out the stuff that's happening between these craniums. Oh, you've got 12 craniums in a room sharing? Okay, let's map that out. Who's talking? And then someone's talking to someone else. How did they figure that out? And what are they saying? And where's this all going? Right? Map it out. And then the map itself puts into visual form something that was forming between our minds anyway. And it just like, it creates a framing that we can then say, okay, yeah, that's it. Or, you know what, that's it, except this one thing over here, change that. And so then there's a dialectic between what was in our minds and now what's on paper or on the digital screen that we can manipulate. And so and these artifacts, these maps and everything become synaptic connections between our minds. They memorialize a conversation. And along the lines of what Lauren was talking about, let's create even like handles, or like, which become kind of like almost like little firings, which then point to a larger process, which you can either delve into or not. Maybe you delve into it once and then you have a memory of it encapsulated in that little meme, image, etc. Right? And then those become, you know, little hooks, little pointers that become familiar, like family, right? And then they become like Chinese characters, right? I mean, I bet there was a lot of talking, and then, you know what, we've talked about this thing so much, let's just create a damn picture of it and agree that that represents, you know, wife, okay? Right? She's my wife, therefore you don't get to sleep with her, that kind of thing, or I'll chop your head off. And then culture emerges from these little icons: wife, rice, rice patty, you know, grain of rice, sack of rice, meal, bowl. Okay, got it. Chirfan, and so much of Chinese culture is around rice, for example. So in a similar way, we're creating a new language, new artifacts, new forms of collective intelligence, new solutions, you know, new stuff that is all around this map, right? So, you know, new solutions, new conversations, etc. So this is this this moment of collective superintelligence. Not to say that we've got it all figured out or anything of the sort. Forget all that. But just this broader moment of all the collective intelligence conversations and development that's happening. This is us doing a massive dimensional enhancement on our intelligence and, you know, language and artifacts and encapsulation and mapping and synaptic connections. I mean, there's really no words to describe it. We're basically going from Neanderthal Stone Age to the final scene in 2000, in the movie 2001, in like a few weeks. Is how it's occurring to me.
You could call it the map, like you could call it Genie, G-N-I, G-I-N-I, Global Intellectual Neuronic Integration. We're all integrating our neurons together intellectually, you know what I mean? So
Totally.
Global intellectual neuron integration.
Totally. You know, we were basically like, if you think of my brain as like a house, mine is a house on a city block. Nolan's is right next door. James is a few houses down, et cetera, et cetera. All this cool shit was happening inside of our houses, right? And we would even pass notes from one house to the other in the form of, you know, primitive conversations or whatever. And now what we're doing is basically we're going from snail mail, notes being passed from house to house, to phone lines, internet, Zoom video conferencing. Now we're all connected. And it's just becoming a giant planetary brain. That's the big picture of what's happening here and what could possibly be more exciting. And it's taken this planetary crisis to smack us upside the head, ground us all at home, get us all on video conference, and basically starting to think as a whole. Even though not a lot of people are articulating it in those terms, at a macro scale, if I was a Martian with a big telescope looking at these Earthlings, I'd be like, oh, okay, they're finally stopping so they can all think collectively. Now this is really going to get good. Let's see what they think up as one giant planetary brain.
My intuition is that basically this process is going to, there's going to be this iteration in compression of information, like condensing things down to just the super core fundamental, like to the irreducible complexity of whatever it is, so that at the end of the day, I feel like while it is while it is a collective thing and everybody's plugged in, simultaneously the goal is something like being able to make digestible as much information as possible to one single person, right? Because at the end of the day, that's where the information's going. Yeah, okay, it's to the collective. Okay, what's the collective made out of? Right? But as the information keeps getting compressed, then we're going to be generating these people that are like just all around thinkers, and like by age whatever, they've gotten this internet education in all these different fields, where like, oh, you learned about this concept in biology and this concept in philosophy or economics or whatever, and they're like very analogous to each other, like all these that's a way of information compression. It's like if two ideas are really analogous and they make sense to be explained together, right? Like that's not something that is really emphasized, I think, or at least I don't remember it being in my own education, but that's where I see all this going, is all of these different fields are converging. And so there's kind of going to be this like if you think of all of the information as kind of like a messy, like all of our knowledge is kind of this messy tangled hyper object, it's going to keep like kind of like folding in on itself, and then making, like, as it's doing that, it's just going to get easier and easier for anybody to just like take it all in, or that's kind of the goal, is to at least that seems like a good goal to me, is to be able to take that all in.
Yeah. It's like we're creating sort of like this massive multidimensional periodic table of, knowledge, information, wisdom, solutions, design, components, phenomena, right? Memes, you name it, but with order, right? With a certain order and structure. And I think that's what you're talking about with like the folding and all that. So whereas a periodic table is just a flat static thing, I think what you're talking about is more like an origami or something that, what are those, like cat's cradle or something like you can just kind of whip around in different, it's the same string, it's the same loop of string, but you can, but seen from different perspectives or mashed up in different ways, different patterns start to emerge, right? And then we create these constructs, this, I think you were talking about compression or, simplification. So we create.
Yeah, that's part of what inspired that. Is I was listening to the Lex Fridman podcast that I've sent you some of before, and he was talking with someone about artificial general intelligence, and how what compression has to do with intelligence, and basically this idea that essentially compression is intelligence. If you can take a bunch of information and you're storing it this way in a super inefficient way, and you figure out, oh, wait a second, a bunch of this is non-essential and it's actually way simpler than I thought it was. Just okay, cool, now I can fit it in this much space, right?
Yeah, bitmap versus JPEG, right? Kind of thing. And but a smart JPEGization, like for example, Newton's laws of physics are a compression of like literally hundreds of thousands of years of Neanderthals watching, rock falls and breaks coconut, duh, right? You know, but finally Newton just compressed it all into literally something that could be expressed with, I don't know, a few dozen characters and symbols, right? Whoa! The periodic table is another such compression. You know, again, hundreds of thousands of years of Neanderthals, black smoke, fire, burn, you know, and just like, put up carbon, you know, hydrogen, oxygen, oh, whoa, you know. So there's this order and compression and kind of minimalization, you know. There's the irreducible complexity, that's it. You cannot get the periodic table down to any fewer elements than that, etc. And in fact, once they mapped out the table, I don't know if you knew this, Nolan, but once they mapped out the fundamental structure, they were able to predict particles that hadn't been observed before, but saying there's some missing voids here, right? And literally earlier on this call, the 24-hour block party, my uncle, Dr. Frank Shively, who worked with Dr. Luis Alvarez at Berkeley, their group discovered several of those particles and put them on the map. Particles that had been predicted by others, they physically isolated them, measured them, and hence discovered them and put them on the map and named them. Hence Californium, Berkelium, Lawrencium. This came from that group. Yeah. So, you know, we now have a living artifact of a person who in the 1960s was doing bubble chamber experiments up at Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory up on the hillside there, where my dad worked for years, and my uncle. So anyway, so this is kind of profound metaphysical moment. Holy shit, that's it. So we're just going to be creating more, you know, periodic tables, Newton's laws, deeper and more compressed understanding that gets to the essence of it. This is why we see this phenomenon in sociology. It's because of this fundamental fear, which can be mapped back to the reptilian in terms of evolutionary stages and to these specific chromosomes in terms of our DNA. Okay, now here's how we short circuit that, override it. Basically, here's the therapy so that when you cut yourself, you don't bleed to death. You can patch it up, it can cauterize, it can heal, and you're still alive. Here's how we short circuit this phenomenon that would have created the next Hitler and mass extermination and whatever, and then planetary overheating and we all die. No, instead, let's short circuit that, rewire it, basically use Newton's laws to create, you know, the Ford Model A. Bad example, because that ended up destroying the world, et cetera, et cetera. Automobiles, etc. But anyway, you get my point. And of course, now with collective superintelligence, this whole other hyperobject layer on top of knowledge, we're basically creating way more efficient machinery for data compression, for knowledge compression down to the irreducibly complex, ordered, right, structures of periodic tables and Newton's laws, right? Upon which Einstein did some really cool stuff, right?
Yeah, that it's making me think, like, wonder how chaotic and confusing it must have felt like to live before any of these now well-established, like, mental constructions, basically. You know, I don't want to be exclusive to like just science, but science as an example of like, just as a thought experiment, what did it feel like to just be a person before these what we take to be super basic premises, right? Before those were well established and like integrated in society. I imagine that there was a confusion and a chaos that is kind of unknowable to us, and that there's going to be an analogous there's going to be an analogous phenomena where not very long from now we'll look back on like, I mean, I think you already know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, we're living in incredible confusion right now, that in the future they'll look back on us with tremendous compassion and understanding. It's because they didn't know this, this, and this. If someone had just showed them in the moment in April 29th, 2020, and just look, here it is, I would be like, just like if, I sometimes do thought experiments of going back and talking with my own ancestors and saying, look, and just having that experience of revealing stuff to them and seeing their reactions, right? So there's stuff we don't know that we're in the process of co-creating, co-discovering, that's really going to change everything. Our perspectives, our beliefs, our story, how we walk the earth, how we eat, where we live, how we live, why we live. What's our story, right? Now we've just have this carryover from some agricultural revolution 12,000 years ago. More for me, more stuff for me, and it's just become this insane, big time wrestling food fight with chainsaws, and it's really, really screwed up. No wonder there's so much confusion and suffering right now, and we can't even make sense of it. Well, we're beginning to, and we're beginning to co-create these mechanisms, not just to make sense of it, but stop the harm, like ending hunger and ending pandemics, right? And cooling the planet. Emergency triage measures, right?
Yeah, I think that that time you're referring to, Nolan, would have been known as the Dark Ages, and since then we've been living in what would be a fogged age, or a foggy age, or a clouded age, we say. But now we're moving into the age of enlightenment, where the fog is lifting finally.
But until then, man, it's all fucked up.
Well, no wonder. It's been jamming this whole time.
Pardon
Just
me?
clouding up the atmosphere.
He's not the only one adding to that cloud at all.
I'm jealous.
You know what the block party is? It's this giant petri dish for these structures to form, right? Some of it slowly over time. Raise your hand if when you were a kid, you did this experiment where you took like basically concentrated sugar in water, water with a lot of sugar in it. You put in a string, you leave it for like several days, and like crystals of sugar form around it, right? But it took a long time. So we basically created a form of rock candy. Anyway, so that's kind of like what this giant petri dish is with long format. We leave the time so that these structures, these encapsulations, these irreducibly complex patterns and whatnot, can have time to form, right? And in parts of the block party, we're banging in ideas with this anvil and hot coals and everything.
I like what you just said there about allowing these the irreducible complexity of these ideas to allow that to form. I like that because you can think of it as if you have the idea, you can think of it from two directions. You can think of it as you kind of have the idea already, but it's overly complex and you're chipping away at it, right? Until you kind of reach a limit. And then, but there's also the opposite direction, which is that you're basically nowhere until you have it. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it's either gradual or instantaneous. But here's the thing, by conversing, what we're doing is we're taking the camera and moving it to a slightly different position. And then we move it over here, and then we pan in, pan out, move around. And at some point we've simply got it collectively. And we express that in conversation. And then stuff like what Lauren was talking about earlier then compresses and compresses and compresses an amazing 3-hour and 27-minute video conference into like a single tight JPEG image that is like a pointer. That's basically like the new Chinese character that we're talking about to represent the whatever new construct or pattern or perspective or whatever, right? So we're basically creating a new gazillion character Chinese alphabet with which to talk about the universe, our place in it, what's next, what's important, etc. What's the plan? What's the story? Mm-hmm.
I think you're still playing with the sugar and the string myself in the glass of water, aren't you? Because the solution you're still mixing the solution, but it's slowly crystallizing, and it'll form into it'll automatically or slowly materialize in the end. So you're still, the solutions are thrown into the glass to slowly crystallize and materialize.
Yeah, that's right. And certain parts of it are crystallizing first, like, hey, we need more intelligence. Okay, more Zoom video conferences, network of them. So we're still just like these Neanderthals putting together primitive connections, but knowing that we need to get smarter, right? It's like that great movie, Limitless, where that Neanderthal-like thug takes this drug and really becomes really smart. Anyway, that's us right now. We're becoming smarter. Neanderthals becoming a lot smarter and realizing that we need to get even smarter still. And that's where we're doing what we're doing with collective superintelligence. Other things that are becoming clear are need to end hunger. Duh, right? Well, we've kind of known that for decades, but now we know it with a clarity because we've encapsulated it down. And then when we mash up that encapsulation of hunger with the encapsulation of pandemics, which we now understand a lot better, with the encapsulation of food systems, food pyramids, and everything else, plant-based, we put it all together and it's like, whoa, this is now ready to deploy. We now understand transistors and energy states within an atom and everything that we can now create freaking Intel chips, right? So the first city in which we eradicate hunger is like the first Intel chip. There had to be a first somewhere, right? So we're also crystallizing this knowledge of what needs to happen and how it needs to happen, and then these innovations spread. This is the history of humans and tools going back 250,000 years. This is just the latest iteration of that. So certain solutions like ending hunger with whole foods, plant-based diet, and distribution, SRM, boom, right? And some other obvious ones are like the first real artifacts of this new industrial revolution, technological revolution, the age of collective superintelligence, and holistic, benevolent planetary transformation, like ending hunger, finally getting humans under control, right, in a good way, and plugged into the collective superintelligence, which is where we're needed now. That's where we're needed the most right now. Slow down, reconfigure, right? This is the huddle before the next play in American football. There's no action happening on the field. The ball's just sitting there. Motion has stopped, and we're thinking collectively. This is the American football huddle. We make the plan, whistle blows, bam, action. End hunger in Louisville, da-da-da-da, end hunger worldwide, da-da-da. Now the ball's moving over there, bam, SRM. All right, that's the play. And it's a complex play with lots of passing and blocking and tackling and this and that, right? All to get to the goal. Sometimes you're throwing the ball backward to go forward. Or so it's. Yeah.
Or just change it up, change up some aspects which definitely need to be, like, you know, the majority of our world leaders need to be women, or all of them, if, in fact.
Yeah, exactly. And we've created, out of that crystallization of knowledge, we created a structure, the divine feminine, within a larger platform, Collective Intelligence Block Party, where that divine feminine leadership is now doing amazing stuff. Boom. Right? So everything is working exactly according to plan. Again, humor, you know, yet another hyperplane look that creates a crystallization. When you create a good joke about something that just cracks you up, it's because you've crystallized, and that's your body saying, ejaculating and saying, yes, I like that. Give me more of that. Give me more such insights. Give me more clarity. That's our body saying, I like the clarity. Give me more of it. Now, what does that mean, Dot? Oops. Okay. Anyway, so this is cool stuff. You know, it even occurred to me that, like, even in the sociology of what's happening here, right? I totally got that. Dot. Anyway, you know how, like, you know, men and women, men by nature, just by nature, we're kind of out there and we want to go out there and mix it up with the elements and stay up all night chasing a deer or something like that. Whereas women by nature are more, you know, home centric. You know, it's about the nest, right? I see it with the crows every day. It's the males who go out and get the food. The females are back at the nest, right? And so even the fact that, like, certain females prefer to communicate via certain channels that are kind of more, you know, that are less out there. For me, it's just consistent with that. Anyway, that was just a little flash. Like, see, I love just being out there, totally exposed on video, just sharing and this and that, right? I'm just appreciating the different modalities of communication. It's pretty cool. And what that also permits is, like, someone who types something every now and then, they get to go into a space of listening and reflection where they're not like on camera, right? Performing, which takes a whole amount of neurons just to do that, just to do the performance part and all the sociology around that, right? Forget about what I'm trying to communicate. And so I'm just appreciating the different modalities, synchronous versus asynchronous, etc. This is all part of the machinery so that we can create better and better data compression. And then an artist will go away for a couple of weeks into a cave and paint something and then come out and it's like, that's it. That's it. That's what we've been talking about for months. That's it. Right? And then think like a good Pink Floyd album from the mid-70s, like Dark Side of the Moon. You've got this image that's the cover of the album, that's that artistic crystallization, and then you play the music, take some bong hits, and now you have all these musical, biochemical keys unlocking series of locks, getting deeper and deeper into the vault, right? Good stuff, everybody. Wow. You hang out on a block party long enough and some good stuff starts to pop. And you know, it's weird. It's kind of, this seems to be a pattern, like I was talking about earlier. It's sort of like Burning Man and like the breaking down of the participant. The block party kind of breaks you down after so many hours. And then you get into this space where shit just starts flowing in a new way. And the fact that we go through the whole 24-hour cycle, which is the same 24-hour cycle no matter where you are on Earth. It just has a different start time and stop time, but you cover the full clock. And we all do it synchronously together.
I've tried to open what you sent and it's not resolving the host for me. I'm just not getting there. Yeah. It's just telling me the site cannot be reached. Okay. I see your YouTube video. Okay. I'm going to screen share and we're going to watch this 4-minute video on neocarbon food. Linking back to all the pyramid stuff we talked about earlier.
It all began with the Sustainability Challenge. In the Neocarbon Energy Project, we began to develop technology for replacing the burning of fossil fuels in society. based on emission-free sources of electricity. We discovered that Power-to-X technologies with CO2 capture from the air opened a possibility also for food production from the air with electricity. The Neocarbon Food Project is a cooperation between LUT University and the Technical Research Centre of Finland, VTT. To this project, VTT brings its expertise in flow module design, microbiological knowledge, as well as methods for CO2 and H2O capture from the air. LUT, on its behalf, brings know-how of hydrogen production, process automation, and energy efficiency. This research has already led to the establishment of the startup company Solar Foods, commercializing the natural protein production. Mankind needs an ever-increasing amount of protein to feed itself. New ways for secure food production are needed. In the 1960s, scientists discovered bacteria that could convert carbon dioxide into organic molecules, such as proteins, when hydrogen and oxygen were provided through water electrolysis. In the 60s, the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions was not considered important, but this perception has changed strongly in recent years and can now be addressed using renewable energy.
Behind the project is a change in energy thinking. Now processes can be powered, for example, with solar energy. It's available for all and everywhere. If we made in the past electricity from coal and the waste was CO2, now protein can be produced from pollution-free electricity, CO2 and water.
LUT and VTT's cooperation has resulted in a concept which has been successfully used to produce protein powder from the air. At the moment, the production is measured in hundreds of grams a day. But in a few years, it is estimated to have a production level of 5 kilograms per day, with equipment that fits in one shipping container. And there is no limitation for scaling up the production. Like any mass-produced technology, it gets cheaper as the production level grows. This is the production process. CO2 and H2O is captured from the air. Hydrogen is produced in situ with electrolysis. Microbiological protein is produced in a bioprocess using hydrogen and CO2 as the main raw materials.
In the direct air capture process, carbon dioxide and humidity are first separated from air by a solid material. Then, using heat and vacuum, we can produce liquid water and pure carbon dioxide for microbial growth.
We designed this integrated water electrolyzer stack to produce hydrogen and oxygen directly into the cultivation medium of the microbes to maximize gas utilization.
The microbes in the reactor use hydrogen as energy and carbon dioxide as carbon source. The protein content of the microbial biomass is higher than that of many other foods, such as, for instance, soybean.
This technology requires only a small fraction of land compared with traditional farming. And furthermore, non-arable land is suitable, as it is mainly needed for renewable electricity generation. And that is a needed revolution.
Man, leave it leave it to the Dutch to come up with crazy stuff. Man, think about it. You know, going back historically, they've had very little land. They actually converted ocean to land, right? So they've had to become incredibly creative and organized and thoughtful. So look at all the cool stuff that comes out of Holland. Good stuff, Dot. Thank you.
I gotta take a bathroom break.
All righty. No. I mean, that's like a crystallization of, you know, synthesizing protein out of its raw elements, carbon, hydrogen. It's just like, whoa. So that's kind of a, I'm just looking at it from different angles. Like you were probably looking at it from, hey, we can produce food without having to kill plants. I get that. But also just look at it from a standpoint of like data compression, the elements of protein. You don't necessarily need all this complex biological machinery. It can be done with, you know, much more element. Let's get to the essence of it, to the core of it.
I kind of missed the last 1 or 2 sentences of the documentary, but I couldn't hear what she was saying about the forests, the sustainable forest. Did she say that they were needed for energy, the energy supply? Like, you know, they were on about using renewable energies to power this, and the only thing I saw was solar panels in that instance there, I think. But like, if you look at what's the names, Michael Moore's documentary there now, Planet of the
Humans.
Planet of the Humans. You see that the message in that is that there is no real green energy in the sense that all those solar panels are made with coal, and it's not just made out of sand as they try to make out that they are. The sand is melted down with coal, and they're using the trees to burn out to basically create the electricity, and they're calling that green energy then, like, but what was the green energy when they're destroying all the forests to do it, like. So there is questions, like, but you know, that's what we have.
Right, exactly. You know, speaking of like real green energy, I think with SRM, with all those mirrors, we're going to be able to concentrate a lot of solar radiation into a concentrated spot or line. And so I think solar thermal, which was also showcased there, and they talked about something I didn't know, which is that you need to basically prime the pump and get the thing started in the morning. You need to inject electricity basically in order to get the solar thermal plant going. But part of me says, look, it's all a matter of numbers, right? It's not, you know, so what if you have to inject some electricity to get the process started? How much? If it's not that much, so what, right? Compared with what you get out of it. So,
yeah, I suppose you're right. It's about balance.
Yeah. So, in that sense, to some degree, it feels to me like that early part of the movie, the first third or whatever of Planet of the Humans, was perhaps a bit too harsh. I'll just make that broad sweeping statement. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's all about balance. We need to create a balanced system, an overall balanced system.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the documentary. Does he talk about nuclear at all?
I only watched the first third of it, so that's the only part I can comment.
Oh, okay.
But I was told earlier that I should watch the rest of it. But yeah, nuclear is another one of those really interesting sort of conundrums, right? because it's like, wait a second, it's free energy. Well, then why wouldn't we? Well, because of these complications. Well, let's, we can engineer our way out of any complication, right?
They're doing a heck of a job of engineering their way out of those complications. From what Felix has shown me over the past couple years, there's there have been some pretty significant innovations made, and it makes, I know it's not a typically popular, it's a controversial form of, it's a controversial energy source, especially in the so-called environmental community. But I do not see it being that way forever. There is a reason that some of there's a reason all these nations are collaborating on projects like ITER. That's just one example of a nuclear project over the past decade, I think. I mean, yeah, I just see it as another thing we have to, I have an incredibly hard time imagining that we will not harness the power of nuclear energy. We have invested a lot into being able to do that, and in the grand scheme of things, we are right at the cusp of unleashing that. I have a very hard time seeing that not happening. Are there going to be like risks? I'm sure. Have we reduced the risks dramatically since past catastrophes? Yes. And the engineering is more sophisticated.
Dot says the thing with nuclear is that it's not decentralized, and there are political concerns with regard to maintenance. For example, during the pandemic, the US has removed some regulations from nuclear plants regarding maintenance. The bottom line is it's complex. It's very complex. And going back to what we were talking about an hour ago and before, thank you, Emory. That's a good example of dealing with complexity, right? We compress it down, right? And we compress it down to its irreducibly complex set of data, knowledge, wisdom, patterns, whatever. And we say, look, this is it. And it's either manageable or it's not, right? And I'd say the jury is probably still out on nuclear just because there are so many facets, including the pathway to get from here to there. Okay, fine, maybe we can get to that place where it's all working and it's all great and it's all safe and everything else. But to get there from here, we had to go through a pathway that may kill us. Anyway, but with collective superintelligence, I think we can map out these pathways and be able to predict, is it going to kill us or not? If not, let's do it. you know, that sort of thing. And I think what Emery put up on with his image of the chalkboard is a great example, right? This is a battle, right? American football is a battle. Every play is a battle, and the game, the overall game, is a war. To reduce the battle down to X's, O's, and arrows, it's like, whoa, gee, right? Anyway, it's just, I think that's what we need to do. We need to map out the battle, the forward path, you know, the pathway of nuclear. And ultimately, the choice has to be made by society. Do we do this or not? Right now, it's being made nation by nation, and that's part of the problem. We're not thinking as a whole. We're not taking it on as a whole.
But interestingly enough, I think nuclear has actually united the world and nations in collaboration. I mean, it's such a powerful thing to unlock. And I know that ITER project has like, I want to say 26 countries collaborating to make it happen. Anyways, I want to fish up some videos for you guys in a second. I'm just trying to find a little something to snack on, but I'm definitely like no expert in nuclear whatsoever, but I get this feeling that there are some very smart people that are not Nazis that are working together today that see what this means for the future of human civilization and are working very hard to unlock that and do it very safely. And that's something that excites me a lot.
What a journey, huh? I mean, the journey of humanity on this planet and all the different things that we're working on together, we're collaborating on, and the different modes of collaboration and the analysis of those modes and exactly who's collaborating. Because when you were talking about, Nolan, about how nuclear has brought humanity together, Dot made the very profound point that it's brought governments together, but not people. It's like, whoa, I wasn't even thinking about it on that level, but wow, that's a good point, you know? And so, look, all this points to, all roads lead to Rome here. We need collective superintelligence. We need to get down to the irreducible complexity across all these different hyperplanes, cutting through the entire hyperobject of existence. It's sort of a poetic sci-fi way of framing that which I just said, is as follows. If all of existence, if all of our reality is a simulation and we're inside some big simulation, as Elon Musk hypothesizes, then our mission is to make such good sense of it all that we work our way outside of the computer, outside of the realm of simulation, and into the realm of the real reality, or the real game, as President Vicente Fox said at our press conference in 2013, to play the real game. That's our mission, to discover and play the real game. Yeah, Emery, I agree. We need a real game meme now. And you know what? Even beyond just a simple meme, think of like a 1-minute video that we could put together that builds off of that real game meme. Here, let me, if you'll indulge me for a couple minutes, let me get that moment where President Vicente Fox makes that statement at our press conference.
A new culture will be emerging. New paradigm, the search for new avenues in this difficult presents such a gigantic consumer market. We must get out of this trap. And here is the opportunity. Now this group here is moving accordingly from words into plans, and from plans into action, and the action in the arena. To play the real game, this group must understand the need to make good, safe, and legal use of these new laws for the benefit of the people and the common good. I am here.
You see, wasn't that just like so elemental, what he just said? Like, this group is moving from talk into plans, and plans into action, and action in the arena, right? and to play the real game. So it's like, I'm thinking we could take some snippets. Say it again, says Emery. Okay, let me say it again. Oh, here, I'm going to let President Fox say it. Let me find it, sorry.
In this difficult and unresolved issue, the North represents into plans.
There we go.
We must get out of this trap. And here is the opportunity. Now this group here is moving accordingly from words into plans, and from plans into action, and the action in the arena. To play the real game, this group must understand the need to make good, safe, and legal use of these new laws for the benefit of the people and the common good.
The real game, because here's the thing. Yes, there's the world of ideas and all that. And then there's the arena where the real game is being played, and there are real people playing this real game. We are the real people playing this real game. And because we are real people, and we are the real people playing this real game, and we have real history, this is a part of that history. This press conference that I organized and that I invited President Vicente Fox to come be a part of, and then he became the biggest thing in that press conference. That was 2013. Here we are 7 years later. And we are in the process of breaking out of the simulation to play the real game. The simulation is that which was imposed upon us by history, by culture. So I think that's a golden snippet right there, because then we get to go back to the history, you know. Awesome. Emery's working on it. All right, it's 5 o'clock in the morning here. We're 23 hours into the block party. It's like a 24-hour trip to Burning Man every week.
Is the sun coming up there, Jamin?
Not yet, but the birds are chirping. No sign of the sun yet. But I suppose if I turned out the lights, I'd probably see a little bit of the beginnings of morning light.
Yeah, that's what happened to me when I switched off the light earlier to get a few hours sleep. The minute I switched off the light, like the birds were singing outside, all right, but I didn't realize it was bright until I switched off the light. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that was 8 hours ago. I remember. 5 o'clock in the morning for you.
I think I hung in another hour.
What's that?
I think I hung in for another hour after you left.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Melvin's a real nice dude as well, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Melvin's awesome. We had a really good conversation after you took a break. He hung out for a while.
Cool. And I also noticed that John Raymer popped in for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. Shared some music.
Cool.
Really uplifting music of a guy that he's an artist he's connected to. And yeah, John is super cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, what an amazing moment to be alive and to be a human being when all this is starting to coalesce and the concentrated sugar is starting to crystallize into these hyperplanes of irreducible complexity.
You have to take a lot of credit yourself as well, Nolan, because you know, you should give yourself an old pat in the back too, like, because you're, I suppose, you know, representing your generation, and you're one of the youngest on the Block Party that has been, you know, the instigator in the formation of it, with along with Jamin and the others, and you know, you kind of represent that kind of side of it, but you know, I'm sure it won't take long before a lot of people in your age group are going to start clicking onto this and saying, you know, wow, somewhere we can actually go and have some input, you know what I mean, and be listened to. So, you know, you definitely deserve a bit of credit in there too.
I appreciate that, James. I want to start I think it would be cool to start a segment maybe that's I don't know how to make it more focused. I have some people in mind that I'd like to invite, but I almost get the sense that I'm really gonna have to help integrate strangers that are my age first a little bit before I can I don't know, there's something weird about trying to get do you know what I mean? trying to get friends that like I don't know. You know how some people you're almost like too close to them in a certain way to like spring something on. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, you know, I've got a lot of friends and a lot of family that I couldn't really talk about this anyway. Like, they just don't want to listen, really, I suppose, for their own reasons, whatever. But yeah, I understand totally where you're coming from. But if you, as you said, if you work on something for like an hour section or segment for yourself, and only take an hour, don't take it, or don't try and make it too big all of a sudden. Go for the hour first and say, I'm going to do an hour segment, and think of something that you think would draw your age group to that hour segment. But you know, people of your age group of like mind who would have that interest. So it's the interest that will draw them in. And strangers, I think you found that you can communicate perfectly well with strangers if you have something in common. So, you know, and you're doing quite well at that now. Like, I mean, lately we can't seem to shut you up at all.
Well, I think there's I'm just kind of wondering into what would make it more, what would make it attractive. And I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, well, maybe people my age will be attracted to the more like I don't know, I guess if let's say this network of video conferences and crazy machine learning becomes really well integrated a year from now, then that has a lot of I guess, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say for people my age, there's more implications of this thing in the sense that we have more time, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So maybe the thing that would make it attractive is, but I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I know the trying to reach out there to like the kind of almost absurdly futuristic vision of this is really enticing to me. And I wonder if like if somehow like older generations are maybe they feel a little more like disillusioned when it comes to technology and the progression there, and maybe it's not as exciting because it's like, well, that's not going to impact that much of my life, and if it's awesome, I'm going to be kind of bummed that I missed out. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, like wondering if it would make sense to I don't know. I'm kind of fumbling here because I feel like
Well, I get where you're kind of coming. Well, I think I get where you're kind of coming from. Like, I mean, to reach out, like, yeah, a lot of like myself, I'm not the best with technology either. Like, and a lot of older people, older than my generation, are the same, and the younger people are totally different frame of mind when it comes to that kind of thing. They're almost born into it, as I used to say. They come out of the womb now with a mobile phone in their hands nearly. But the yeah, like if like. I'm not a gamer by any means either, like, but I know that there's lots of games out there that are played online, and it's all about creating your own world. There is a world, and you create your own world in this world or whatever. There's all sorts of games out there. I don't know what they're called. You know what I'm on about, like. But a lot of your age and even young adults or middle age adults are hooked on these games where they create their own version of their own little world and all that. Like. So it's kind of that kind of a sense. But if you get on, like we say, no, you went on some form of an online game like that, and you see, look at the people who are creating the worlds and see what kind of worlds they're creating, and you look for the ones who are trying to create a beautiful world and all that. So they're the ones you want to get in touch with and say, you want to come and try and help model your world in the real world. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. Like that's entice them in then, like. And that'll just catch their attention and go, how do you mean? Like, and bam, and you go like dropping your introduction to this CSI, you know what I'm saying? And you're a leader in your age group of for it, isn't it?
That's a really interesting idea. I would.
Yeah. Why consume your time creating an imaginary world? Come create a better new world, real world.
Yeah, you know what? That's it. The real game. That's it. That's the meme right there. The real game. 3 words. The real game. Period. Huh? And then we lead with President Vicente Fox to play the real game. Right? And then it could cut to me. I've been playing this game for 8 years now, and I'll never go back. Join me. Right? What? He smokes weed. Shit. Oh my God. He's friends. What? You know, that kind of thing. It's like, you want to play a real game? Play with a real character. You want to play a real game? Play with some real characters. Like James in Ireland. Yeah. Like Nolan. Like Dot. Is she a bot or is she Dot? Come find out for yourself. A bot that smokes? How cool is that? A dank bot. Dot.
I keep thinking of that scene in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where what's his name? The actor lied. He keeps going, play the game, play the game, play the game, play the fucking game. When he was poking at the guy in the game of cards, in the scene, it was very funny, I thought. Have you ever seen that movie, Nolan, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Jack Nicholson? Oh man, classic. You gotta see that, like, just classic. I mean, Danny DeVito was a young man in it. Christopher Lloyd, first time seeing him in anything before, years before Back to the Future, any of those things. Like, so, you know, Jack Nicholson was only a young man and was very early in his acting career. Fantastic for him.
I've heard really good things. Have you heard or have you seen Synecdoche, New York?
No, what is it?
Synecdoche, New York. It's a surreal movie about a playwright who has like who has problems with his family, and he gets a grant to basically do whatever he wants, and like make his his masterpiece of a work in theater. And it's super weird, and I'm pretty sure it's why I've had like really intense dreams the past couple nights. It's like really, yeah.
Could you,
I feel like
could you spell the first name for it? I couldn't really understand what you were saying.
Yeah. Here, I'll type it in the chat. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays the theater director, the main character. It's interesting. Like I want to watch it again, but like I had a couple of beers over the course of the 2-hour movie, and while I was watching it, determined that it was not a beer movie. It's like it's probably not a sativa movie either, because it could very well give you schizophrenia or something.
Sounds like a mushroom movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, you've intrigued me anyway, so I'm going to be watching that later tonight. It's
Cool. Has anyone here seen A Place Beyond the Pines? It's super good. I just watched it for the first time like a week ago. It's got Ryan Gosling and what's it? Bradley Cooper. And Bradley Cooper is like fairly young in that movie. But it's really good, like very kind of unconventional. Like there's a story, but there's some it doesn't go as you expect, and it doesn't like it's not formulaic. It's I don't know, it's really good. Super good.
Well, it's the place beyond the pines. See, we all know the pines, right? This is that place beyond. So it's not formulaic.
Is the pines like is that like a thing?
No, I'm just using it as a thing, just because that's what the title, with what you described, that's why I'm just inferring why they titled it that way. It's kind of like F. Scott Fitzgerald's book, This Side of Paradise, right?
Mm. James, if you want to watch a movie, well, I would feel better if you watched The Place Beyond the Pines because of my recommendation than the other movie. Not that you would probably like Synecdoche, New York. Yeah, you'd probably like it.
I'll watch them both now and I'll decide. I try to watch at least one movie a night now that I'm kind of, now that we're restricted. But it's just to free my mind, you know what I mean? Just to escape for a while, like in another world, I suppose, like just to free my mind of thinking, like, so I try to watch one film a night, try to keep it upbeat if I can, you know what I mean, rather than, because I get too much negativity during the day anyway with the stuff I'd be looking into and looking up, because of all this, the connections to this and everything else, which is what led me here anyway. But it is, a lot of it's fairly negative and depressing when you're looking into it and you're finding new things, and then you're finding more new things that are related to this new thing, and you start to, as the picture starts to get bigger and everything else, you can get a bit overwhelmed by the reality of where we are. But the positivity here is what saves me, in a sense. Like this platform brings the positivity because it shows me that there is a light at the end of all that negativity, you know what I mean? So it's in a sense, it's like watching the film at night as well. This is a form of escapism for me as well, from the reality of the horrors of real life, to be able to glimpse at a better future and be doing that with somebody, with a group of people that are not only just trying to glimpse beyond the pines, but are trying to get beyond the pines, constructively and holistically. So it's, I'm wobbling now. I'm knowing I'm actually awake.
Yeah, James, I totally empathize with you, and I do the same thing, a similar thing in escaping into a different reality through movies. And like, I will sometimes go straight for a movie from the 90s, specifically the 90s, because it was pre 9/11. It was pre-climate change. It was, we were just in this bubble of innocence, and anything's possible. Anything's possible. So I sometimes teleport back to that world just to forget about, escape from the present reality, which is so painful.
Yeah, Back to the Future. I go back to 84 and Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, sorry, no, or Jim, and I didn't mean to cut you off there on the floor, but I just said Back to the Future is one of my favorite films, because what a trilogy, the way they put it together and everything, so. But I get exactly what you're saying. A time before, it doesn't seem like that too long ago, yet it does seem like a world away.
Yeah, and now here, this platform, the Block Party, we are also escaping the present, but we're escaping it by teleporting ourselves into the future and hanging out there for a while and saying, wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so long. We're teleporting into that future that we're living into. So escape to the past and then escape to the future. And that gets back to that great quote that life is what happens while we are waiting for something else, or life is what happens, you know, while you're working on your plan or whatever, you know. It's like while we're teleporting into the past and into the future, life is happening. At the intersection of the past and the future. We are the crease in the page. Or as Emery says, we are the jelly in the roll. And, you know, these memes that really encapsulate, you know, I was talking about the Chinese character set. There is so much wisdom encoded in these Chinese sayings that I recite from time to time. Sometimes I recite them in English and sometimes in their original Chinese, as Nolan can attest. But anyway, those Chinese memes, sayings, right? Wisdom. Talk about irreducible complexity and fold it in, right? It gets so tight. It gets so tight. Like here's one about, you know, a couple that's really fallen out of sync, right? Here's the saying. Sleeping in the same bed, dreaming different dreams. Doesn't that just say it all? It just says it all. Bam. Right? And then one that we use here in the evolution of collective intelligence. It takes an axe to make another axe. So anyway, we're coming up with the new Chinese character set and the new set of Chinese memes. For what? For what? To carry us, to be like the fabric, the matrix that carries us through this transition to a future of life and balance and love and connection and joy and creativity, that more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. We need the new character set. We need the new memes. We need the new framework. We need the new philosophy, the new story.
Hey, Jimin, do you want to try a connection experiment?
Sure.
I can hear the birds singing away there as you're speaking. And I just opened my own window, and there's a thrush outside in my pond, and he's having a bat. But the blackbirds are on the trees, and they're answering the birds because in your backyard. I was wondering if you leave your speaker on, and I'll put my mic on. I'll just put my phone up to the window, and we'll see if they'll communicate for a sec. So. That's cool, no?
Beautiful. All right, we're getting into the final stretch. 23 minutes to go of the 24-hour block party. Man. You know, I think Lauren helped us distinguish some cool stuff tonight, or this morning, about it's so much of it is about the tribe. And the reality here is we're creating a new tribe. We're a bunch of misfits. And we're coming together because we're like this emergent new tribe of people who get it and get that we all need to come together. Well, at least the tribe needs to come together. That's a good start, right? Because if the tribe comes together, we can orchestrate everything else and everyone else. I know that sounded kind of evil, but you know, that's not how I intended.
What did I miss?
Oh, I was just saying that, you know, this new emergent tribe that I started saying, oh, we all need to come together. But then I'm like, wait a second, no, the tribe needs to come together, because the tribe, just the tribe coming together, if it's 0.01% of us or however many there are, right? However many there are, we come together and we can figure this shit out and orchestrate everything and everyone else, right? Benevolently, of course. Right? We can redefine the game first for the tribe, then for all of humanity, and ultimately all of life, right? So it's all about the tribe coming together. Forget about everything else. It's all about the tribe. Or as was always on this refrigerator at my dad's buddy's house in the 70s and 80s. I'll always remember, it said, it was like a bunch of, I forget what the image was, but the words went like this. It was like a little mini poster, magnet, something. Not a magnet, but a thing. And it said, to hell with the future. Let's get on with the past. Right? It's like, to hell with humanity. Let's get on with the tribe. Right? Let's get on with the tribe. Because within the tribe, we can figure this thing out. And in fact, it's very helpful just to get with the tribe and to not have outside influence. That's not tribe. Because then we can really get pure signal, you know?
Yeah, and the reason that our conversation with Lauren tonight went so well is because we've collectively invested the time and become more of a tribe, you know, and it's just not like you can being able to find your tribe is really important. Being able to find your tribe is really important, but the investment that you make in each other is what really drives things. So it's like, yeah, you know, rapid switching for problem solving. Okay, yeah, sure. but you know, you got to have a tribe, you got to have a family, you know.
Yeah, it's rapid switching, but it's also me having a really nice map of what's inside your head. You're having a really nice map of what's inside my head, and us having a common language for referencing those essentially mirrored portions of the brain, right? So I can do reference, and I've activated those parts of your brain that need to be activated. Those are now like in cache. And then I say, voila, here's what to do with all that shit that's in cache, right? And so you do the computation, and now we've mirrored that complex computation with a bunch of moving parts. We've mirrored a whole freaking Rolex watch, right?
Yeah, and then on the flip end of you knowing basically how I think and presenting me a message in that way, I'm more comfortable with the way you think. So what you're saying in general, just, I mean, and this is, I think this is getting at like part of the, like if Silas and Alan like regularly talk to each other, they could become friends and have some really awesome conversations. I think that the only reason, yeah, I think it's just a matter of like, okay, maybe it wouldn't be easy for them to get to some of those conversations. Although in the grand scheme of things, I feel like that's not a divide that is that hard to, I don't know. I'm hearing some vegan shouting in my skull, but
Well, yeah, and because here's what's going on there. You've got these two different tribes that have a fundamentally different worldview, right? And for the two of them to reach synthesis would be to essentially birth a new tribe by mashing up two existing tribes, right? You know, like mashing up European and indigenous to create the modern Mexico, right? What was created is totally unique, totally different from any other tribe anywhere in the world. I say that because it's the culture that I most closely identify with, is Mexican culture. And anyway, what am I saying? I'm saying, you know, but to create a mashup tribe is a big deal. It's like birthing a new tribe. It's a secret love child between, this would be a secret love child tribe, a secret love tribe between Alan Savory and Silas Rao. A secret love tribe. Secret because, don't tell the other vegans, but you know, I've been mixing it up with the Alan Savory types. You know, it's a secret love tribe. Sorry. You know, but now we're getting to some really interesting territory, which is, you know, and this is something that we can actually map and be, you know, for lack of a better word, be responsible for. And that is when you bring different tribes together, what happens, right? And how do we work with that? How do we facilitate that? Is there some sort of a universal connector we can all plug into? Maybe that's the definition of collective superintelligence, the universal connector of the real game.
well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like you in the Silas and Alan example are that connector. And so I just imagine other people serving the same bridging roles between communities. Because and to be a connector, you don't necessarily have to like you don't have to have gotten to the synthesis yourself, and you're just trying to lead both sides to what you concluded, if that makes sense. Like you can just go in being like, I see the validity and in each of these, or maybe I really don't know and I haven't made up my mind, but just having somebody there that's in that position, I think makes a big difference, rather than like, you know, it's set up and played off as if like Friday night, Silas Rao and Alan Savory, you know, like who will win? Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what it became, right?
I'm curious what it would have been like if Alan had more supporters show up specifically for him. Maybe not necessarily like anti-vegan supporters, but just people that are like, yeah, I think, because a lot of people showed up for Silas, and I mean, I could see why some people would be frustrated with Alan for sure. Just, I don't know, he can come off a little bit pretentious, but I think he's got like, I think both people are coming from a good place. I would have been curious to see more of his supporters show up. And I think I think it might have made a lot of sense to just let them converse, like not recorded, not live streamed, for however long, and then like kind of let them decide when, okay, yeah, now let's have a conversation in public about this, now that we kind of, I don't know.
Well, you know, I've thought back on it a few times a bit, and I think if I had it to do over again, and I might restart it on this basis, but have a meeting that's not recorded, not broadcast, just the three of us, right? Like a little virtual Camp David. And you know, just like, let's get to know each other before we try to do a gig together in Madison Square Gardens, right? Anyway, just get to know each other. We're figuring out all kinds of really interesting kind of Zoom sociology, right? Because let's face it, this is humanity coming together in a way that we never have before. This is not face-to-face, in-person communication. It's just not. I can't reach out and touch you. You know, we're not sharing the same space, the same food, the same water, the same air, you know, the same smoke, you know, et cetera, right? So this is not in-person, face-to-face. But at the same time, it has really strong elements of that, in that I can see your face and you can hear me. We all know what this is. Or do we? All right, we got Miles. Miles, rise and shine. It's the dawn of a whole new day, and Miles has made his coffee, and he says, you know what? What better way to start the day than to crash the block party? Anyway, Miles, you're on mute, and that's totally fine. And you're still on mute, and that's still totally fine. There you
Still asleep.
go.
Oh God, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Oh.
Ellen, same as last week, covered for me from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Pacific time. And then he just hung in there. Right?
Wow.
So
Great job, guys. Yeah, I thought, okay, I'll get in on the countdown here.
yeah. That's right.
Oh man.
We've been going deep on really cool aspects and dimensions of collective intelligence.
Great.
Yeah, it's been pretty trippy. And we're bridging the trippy and the implementable. And just bzz, bzz, making that connection.
Yeah, the ideas, they just keep flowing. And the inspiration, hey?
Yeah.
Inspiration, a lot of it.
Yep. You know what's interesting? You know how like people talk about some of these like scenarios of what if AI like takes over and oh no. Well, you know, couldn't we just pull the plug? You know, those kind of conversations, right? Well, imagine that our conversations were like a collective superintelligence that's trying to form. And rather than it being a conversation about pulling a plug, it's about getting a plug plugged in, which is exactly the metaphor Stephen Weisberg birthed a week ago, saying that ending world hunger is like humanity, collective superintelligence plugging itself in. It's like plug in to the power source, right? We got unplugged, right? And now we're scattered all over the living room floor in 7.7 billion different pieces. We need to plug back in and reintegrate. We need to plug back into the energy source, and we need to plug back into each other.
And you know, another way to look at it, it's the way I'm looking at governance. Okay, reevaluate governance. So, what you're doing, really, I would suggest, is you're reevaluating artificial intelligence, collective intelligence, because it already exists. But if we don't participate in reevaluating either of these, governance or collective intelligence, it's going to go forward in spite of us.